This episode of the Everything is a Primary Source podcast features a discussion about The Wizard of Oz. It was recorded a few summers ago at Prescott Park in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, just before a performance of Little Shop of Horrors. This portion was originally included in with a longer dialogue in Season 3, but is now taking its own path down the yellow brick road. The Everything is a Primary Source podcast is hitting the road to celebrate the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. This summer, and the week leading up to July 4th, I'll travel from Chicago to Colorado Springs, stopping at museums along the way to host drop-in podcasts and collect stories from everyday people. As is my method, we'll use pop culture media, places, and moments to ignite conversations that will speak to how our society and culture has taken shape over the last 250 years. These conversations will become the next season of the Everything is a Primary Source podcast, as well as centerpieces of an open source teaching and learning resource. Go to everything-history.com/America250 to learn the route and see how you can get involved. Welcome to the Everything is a Primary Source podcast, the show where we navigate history through popular culture. I'm your host, Eric Salmonson. I'm a social studies teacher, historian, and pop culture enthusiast. Each episode, I sit down with everyday people to discuss the media, objects, places, and events that shape us and reveal what they say about the past, as well as who we are now. The Everything is a Primary Source podcast is, therefore, your history, my history, our history through popular culture. I'm here with Greta, and she's one of the ensemble members of the cast of Little Shop of Horrors here at Prescott Park in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. And I was talking to one of your colleagues earlier, and I was saying how you really haven't done that many performances thanks to the rain.
Yes.
And so it must be kind of weird. Like, it's like opening night again, right? Because you're doing it. How many have you gotten in so far this year? About a dozen?
This should be like number 22, I think. This should be number 23, but I think we've had 3 canceled for rain. So number 20, I guess.
That's not that bad, I guess.
But we've had a lot of weekends where we've had like a night off because of a concert or something. Yeah. So we haven't had a single full weekend yet, which is wild. Including this one, because Friday was canceled. Yes, indeed.
But are you enjoying it at least?
I am. I'm having a great time. It's such a fun, chaotic show, and it's everybody's just so nice, and I'm very sad that it's closing soon.
What is your have you gone to school for acting? Is that what you see as part of your...
I just graduated from the University of New Hampshire. I studied musical theater and political science.
Oh. My son and my wife performed in Sleeping Beauty Ballet this past spring, which was in, I think, your facility.
Yeah.
I forget the name of the theater, but it was...
Johnson.
Yeah, the Johnson Theater, which... is kind of an adventure getting to find, through the campus. I didn't realize it was so far back there. I thought it was going to be closer to like the field house or something, but it wasn't. But it was a nice theater, and we had a great time. So that's kind of like the hub of all the creative performance arts stuff at UNH. Great. And so I imagine that's most of the cast are people such as yourself that are... This is what you're doing. It's not just like a fun community theater type thing. This is like part of what you do.
I believe every single one of us are studying or have studied theater in some capacity.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing it. Yeah. And I'm also glad that you chose for my table of stuff. And I brought this for this reason because I love talking to Wizard of Oz. Mm-hmm. I all the classes I teach, I bring it up all the time. It's not my favorite movie, but I think it's the greatest movie ever made. I think it's perfect. And it set the tone in so many ways. And my wife would be so happy I said that because it's her favorite movie. Where does it fit in your kind of like pantheon of films?
Oh, it holds a special place in my heart. I was born to be a theater kid. I would make my siblings put on performances of different movies in my living room with me, and I would play the leads, of course. And
it's very Joe March of you from Little Women. That's
yes. And The Wizard of Oz was one that we did very, very often. I would watch it all the time, and I just loved Dorothy so much. So it's near and dear, I would say. Yeah.
I think it's the ultimate, because like I'm a teacher. and I show it in a lot of my classes. At least something about Wizard of Oz finds its way in most of the things I teach. And one of the things that the book, 1900, L. Frank Baum, gets a lot of attention from economists and economic historians because they are just entranced with the populist bimetallism component to it, which I'm pretty sure L. Frank Baum he said over and over again, no, it wasn't meant to be about that. But, he had and it just proves the point of what I do for this podcast. I'm like, even if it wasn't intended for that, he had no choice but to include it because it was just all around him. That was like the political feeling of the 1890s was, what should we do with this money, system? And, so I think sometimes those people go off the deep end with their analysis of it. And the movie, of course, retains some of it, has a yellow brick road. It gets rid of it right away, though, with Dorothy's ruby slippers.
Yes, not being silver.
Right.
Yeah.
So the silver gold thing, that makes a lot more sense. And so people are like, oh, how can you still say this movie is historically valuable? I'm like, yeah, but think about when it was actually made.
Yes.
The 30s.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of 30s in this movie. So the question I put before you is, what's it made out of? How is it made? Where do you see the 1930s in The Wizard of Oz?
Yeah, well, just going off of your point, I fully agree that art cannot exist without the politics of its time. As a political science and theater major, it's something that I think about quite often. And that's also the political influence within The Wizard of Oz is something we talked about in my AP US history class when I took it in high school.
So I'm doing a good job, yeah.
And I don't remember everything from that class, but I do remember talking about that. I think there are definitely influences of these things. I mean, even thinking about just like Oz as a concept, this place where everybody is affluent and these aren't things that our characters are used to, and so they come to this place and they get everything that they want because they have these resources and this glory and all of that. And the wizard, he comes to Oz from Kansas, I believe. He's also from Kansas, and he gets to be this rich person in Oz where he wouldn't get to at home because it's like you said, the 1930s, and things aren't looking so good for everybody.
So you're an actor, so I think you'll appreciate this. I have a theory that because the book, the original story, people are like, again, if they're over symbolizing, everything has a symbol to it, they always say Oz, the city, is Washington, and the Wizard of Oz is the president. And they're like Coxey's army going to appeal to the president, which did happen in the 30s. The bonus army marched on Washington, and throughout the not just 1932, but throughout the 30s, they kept coming back and back and back, asking for their bonus. But I actually have a theory that Oz in the movie represents California and Hollywood, because it's the wizard himself is played by the same guy that she meets down by the river, and he's like a failed entertainer.
Yes.
And he's the one that kind of is trying to dissuade her from leaving home, because California had a lot of promise in the 30s, not just for people who want to make it in show business, although that was you go to the movie theater and you're like, wow, this would be easy money. I just go out there, make a couple movies, and I'm a millionaire. I can make it. Not that easy, but they didn't know that necessarily. And also it was the promise of fertile fields, and farmhands from the Dust Bowl could get work in California. Again, didn't necessarily come out to be true for everyone. But, here's Dorothy. She wants to leave home. She's sick of Kansas, sick of the Dust Bowl, because, that's, 1930s, that's what was happening. And she heads out to Hollywood. Despite this guy's warnings, he's like, don't go it, but whirlwind, just kind of plops her there. And, the wizard himself is kind of like a producer. He's like, yeah, I'll give you everything you want. But at first, you got to do a favor for me. You got to go take care of my enemy. Again, I don't want to get too steeped in symbols, because I think when you do that, it's kind of like, have you seen the live action Beauty and the Beast that they did? When she picks up the mirror and she's like, and what's your name? They're like, well, not everything here's alive,
Yeah.
So I don't want to be like that, but I feel like given the time period and everything going on around it, it's almost like it's Hollywood telling the rest of the country, like, yes, we actually are this shallow.
Yeah.
Think about the song they sing when they get to Oz.
Yes.
Like we wake up at noon and
start to work at 1 take
and
an hour for lunch, and then
and like,
we're
can you
done.
dye my eyes to match my gown? Like, yeah, of course, we do that all the time out here because we're so vain. We don't care. I also think that there's an interwar feeling in there as well, especially with the "No Place Like Home" monologue at the very end, when she's like, "It was beautiful," and I thought, but I just said I want to go home, and it's like, yeah, World War I vets telling everybody else, like, because there's another war on the horizon in Europe. Maybe this might not be our trip, but what else about the 30s might be kind of hidden in plain sight in The Wizard of Oz?
Well, I'm going off of your theory that at least in the movie, Oz is representative of Hollywood. I think that even ties back to what we were talking about before with the decision to change the slippers from silver to ruby.
Yeah.
Because it was, film history, it was because things were transitioning to Technicolor.
Yeah.
They were like, silver's not going to be enough for
nobody's going to be impressed by that.
The spectacle of it all. They have to be something different. So the choice for the slippers to be ruby, I think, even reflects pop culture and the sensationalization. Is that a word?
It is now.
There we go. Of just like all of that, and Hollywood as a symbol.
Yeah, it's just kind of like as this great, and I don't, as an actor, do you feel that way about Hollywood now, or has it diminished a bit?
It's an interesting question, especially considering the strikes that are ongoing now. I think it's not really something I've given much thought to.
Not even sure if we could talk about those. Are we violating some kind of union rule or something?
I don't think so. I'm not in the union. I don't know. But I don't even know where I was going with that thought.
But I mean, is it because in the 30s, Hollywood had become that monolithic, this is where movies are made.
Yes.
And it basically gotten that title because of geography, because beautiful sunshine all the time. You can make movies. You don't have to, it was Edison was making them in the Black Maria, like just had to turn the entire building to get the sunlight, to come in New Jersey. You make it in Southern California, it's like this all the time.
Yeah.
Beautiful sunlight. You get all, you can shoot outside all the time, no rain, but also you can't get any further away from Washington and still be in the country, where all the copyrights to those stories and the machinery that they're using are being held. They can't enforce it in Hollywood. So by the 30s, that's why Hollywood was doing so well, is because they hold all the movies. That's where they're made. You can't make them anywhere else. So now that 100 years later, it's all kind of dispersed all over the country.
Yes.
Like, if you have aspirations to make movies,
you can do it wherever you want.
Go to Atlanta. You can go.
You can go to Atlanta. You could be based in Boston, New York. You can be submitting to things virtually. You could live at home. I could live here in New Hampshire and still go somewhere and make a movie if they wanted me.
Yeah.
If I auditioned and got in and stuff like that.
Syracuse, New York actually has a. There's a company that bought an old middle school.
Wow.
And it's called All American High. And they make movies, a lot of school-related movies, but they have other sets in this old school, and that's pretty close, actually.
That's very
cool. I mean, if they can make a Hollywood in Central New York, then why not anywhere? So in some ways, it's it's Hollywood, and my family, we just went to Southern California a few weeks ago, and even before we went to actual Hollywood, we were told by a lot of people, like, it's not this, like, gilded, beautiful place. I mean, it was definitely pretty, but there's a lot of things, even some of we didn't even bother with some of the landmarks and stuff, like the sign, or we went to the cemeteries. We like a lot of cemeteries. They're cool. We went to Hollywood Forever and a few others. We saw Marilyn Monroe's, where she's buried.
Oh yeah.
Which is actually behind like a parking garage. Like you wouldn't.
Really?
It's tiny. It's about. I'd say that cemetery that she's in, and Don Knotts was there, and Rodney Dangerfield, and Carl Wilson. is about the size of where these people are sitting to watch the play. It was tiny. It was surrounded by high-rise buildings and a parking garage. And there's film icon Marilyn Monroe just tucked away in a mausoleum in the back. It was kind of weird. But what I was going with that is it's not the symbol that it used to be.
Yeah.
And so they have made the Wizard of Oz since then a couple times.
Many versions of it. I mean, even within theater, we have Wicked, which is based on a book, which is like a prologue to the Wizard of Oz. So I feel like the story is really branched out a lot for new generations too.
And that's almost, to wrap things up, that's exactly what L. Frank Baum, I think, wanted. If you ever take a look at the introduction of The Wizard of Oz, the book, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, he said, because it's 1900, and he said, gone are the old fairy tales. We need a new, our new country. We need a new story, new fairy tales, new lessons for our children for the future. And I think somebody actually said about The Wizard of Oz, it's the most accurate depiction of Midwestern life.
Oh, yeah.
Despite all the magical things that happen in it, but the way that it portrays how people live there, is very accurate and very relatable. It gave agency to, people in the middle part of the country that up until that point, nobody even listened to what they had to say. So it's like, here's our story.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So I think he'd be very glad actually to know that all of the stories and, from Wicked to, what was that one with James Franco?
Oh my gosh,
Oz the Great and Magnificent or something like that.
Whatever it was, I saw it.
Yeah, Mila Kunis was in it, and all that kind of business and Star Wars. The original Star Wars is very much another take on the Wizard of Oz. There's a lot of similarities there, and The Wiz came out around that time too, and so it's a story that continues on and on and on in so many different ways.
It's even referenced in the new Barbie movie.
Is it really?
It is.
I've yet to see that. My wife's going to go see it in a couple of days, and I'm interested. I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
Seems like a different take on a Toy Story type.
Yeah,
Is it good?
It is very good. Yeah, I think it's very accessible to multiple generations, kind of like we were talking about with the Wizard of Oz. I think there's audiences for it in all different ages.
Awesome. So I'm going to look into that too, because I love metafiction. I like that idea of, and what I see from the trailer anyway, it seems like she has to make a decision as to, kind of like reverse Wizard of Oz, where she's going into the real world instead of the fantasy world.
Yeah.
That's cool. Thanks for taking the time.
Yeah,
I really
of course.
appreciate
This is
it.
great.
And look forward to seeing you in Little Shop of Horrors coming up in a little bit.
Hope you enjoy.
I will. Thank you. Popular culture, by definition, connects and unites us, and proves that people of different backgrounds, in fact, have a lot in common with one another. I hope you enjoyed this conversation, at least in part, for that reason. If it connects with you and you'd like to add to it, or any of the podcast episodes, just visit everything-history.com and search for the Everything is a Primary Source project, which can be found in the classroom section of the website. We'd love to hear what you have to say. Be sure to rate and share this podcast wherever you are listening to it now, and follow Everything as a Primary Source on social media, including YouTube and especially Instagram. Thank you for listening to the EPS podcast, where everything is a primary source.